Welcome to the React Diagram tutorial. In this video, I will show you how to customize the Syncfusion React Diagram component and its elements. You will see how to customize the diagram canvas with page size, orientation, and page breaks. You will also see how to add multiple pages and customize the appearance of nodes and connectors. First, I open a React application containing a diagram component with nodes and connectors that render a flowchart. To learn more about integrating the Syncfusion Diagram component into a React application, please check the Getting Started video linked in the card above and the description below. Let me run this application using the npm start command. The diagram canvas renders with the specified flowchart. I'll first customize the diagram page settings to an A4 page size. In the diagram component, I bind the page settings property with a variable name. I define this page setting variable of type page settings model, which is an interface imported from the Syncfusion EJ2 diagrams package. Within it, I set the height property to 842 pixels and width to 595. To see the page breaks, I set the show page breaks property to true. I create space around the diagram by setting the margin property to 20 pixels in all directions. To differentiate the page area, I set the background color with a custom color. Look at the diagram canvas now rendered with the defined A4 page dimensions with margins and a background color. The default orientation is landscape, which means the page is wider than it is long. To render the diagram in portrait orientation, I will change the orientation property. So, in the page settings property, I set the orientation property to portrait. The page is rendered in portrait orientation. Next, I want to create multiple pages to fit all the nodes and connectors. When I print or export the diagram, the elements that exceed the page size will be added to the next page. I achieve this using the page settings, enabling the multiple page property. When a node renders beyond the page boundary, a new page will be created. Grid lines are a pattern of lines drawn behind the diagram elements that provide visual guidance when dragging and arranging the objects on the diagram surface. By default, the diagram canvas displays all the grid lines. You can choose to display the canvas with horizontal lines, vertical lines, or without any lines. In this example, I will show the diagram canvas without grid lines. In the diagram component, I bind the snap settings property with a variable name. Then I define this snap setting variable. Within it, I define the constraints property with the snap constraints enum value none. Notice that the snap constraint enum is imported from the Syncfusion EJ2 React Diagrams package. You can see the diagram canvas renders without any grid lines. So far, you have seen how to customize the diagram canvas. Now I will show you how to customize the appearance of nodes. In the diagram component, I add the getNodeDefaults property with a callback method name. This method will be triggered whenever a node is created. I define this method, which takes a node model type as a parameter. To customize the node style, I add the style property and set the fill property to light green, stroke color to orange, stroke width to 3, and stroke dash array to 7,7. The fill property applies background color to the node. The stroke color applies a border color. The stroke width is the width of the border, and the stroke dash array is the pattern of the stroke. I return the node object at the end of the method. You can see that the nodes are modified with the specified styles. Next, I will show you how to apply a gradient style to the nodes. The available gradient style types are linear, radial, and none. In the node's style property, I define the gradient property and set the type to linear. Then I create a new linear gradient brush with a start point of 0 for both the x1 and y1 properties, which indicates the beginning of the gradient line at coordinates 0, 0. I set the endpoints to 50 for both the x2 and y2 properties, which defines where the gradient line ends at coordinates 50, 50. Next, I need to define the gradient stops property to achieve a smooth color transition. This involves setting colors for the transition and specifying where each color starts and ends along the gradient line. I define the stops property and set an array of objects. Inside, set the first gradient stop with the color white and an offset of 0, meaning it starts at the beginning of the gradient line at 0, 0, defined by the x1 and y1 properties. Then I set the second gradient stop with a custom color and an offset of 100, meaning it appears at the end of the gradient line, which is at the coordinates 50, 50 defined by the x2 and y2 properties. This offset value ensures that color transition reaches its final color at the endpoint of the gradient line. You can see the linear gradient appearance of the nodes with the defined colors. Similarly, you can apply a radial gradient appearance by setting the appropriate properties. The nodes are positioned based on the offset x and y values. By default, the offset values represent a distance between the origin of the diagram's page and the center of the node. This is controlled by the pivot property. By default, the pivot value will be 0.5, 0.5. The distance between the page origin and the node can also be set on different pivot points, like 0, 0 for the top left corner and 1, 1 for the bottom right corner. Now, to change the position of the nodes, in the getNodeDefaults method, I add the pivot property and set the x value to 0 and the y value to 0. As you can see, all the nodes' positions have changed slightly to below the previous position, and the rotator has been adjusted based on the pivot value of 0, 0. Next, I will show you how to customize the connectors. I comment out the pivot property from the getNodeDefaults method. I also comment out the page settings property in the diagram component to explain further customizations. To modify all the connectors in the diagram component, I add the getConnectorDefaults property and assign a callback method name. This method will be triggered when each connector is created. Implement the connectorDefaults method by receiving a connector parameter. To customize the connector color, let me use the connector argument and define its style, setting the stroke color property to blue. By default, the source decorator is none and the target decorator is an arrow. To customize the source decorator, I define the connector's source decorator property and set the shape to diamond. Similarly, I customize the target decorator using the target decorator property and set its shape to indented arrow. I also modify the style using the style property and setting the fill to yellow, stroke color to blue, and stroke width to 2. You can refer to the document link attached in the description below to see the types of decorator shapes. Checking now, the connectors and their decorators are customized based on the provided shapes and styles. When I try to select the connector, it is selected as soon as the mouse is in its vicinity. The default proximity is set at 10 pixels from the connector. This means that the connector is selected when the mouse comes within 10 pixels of it. To customize this proximity, I need to use the hit padding property. To demonstrate, I set the connector's hit padding property to 50 pixels in the connector defaults method. Now I can select the connector when the mouse reaches the specified padding. By default, the connector's endpoints are in contact with the nodes they connect. If you want to add space between the connector points and the nodes, use the padding properties. To do so, I set the connector's target padding and source padding properties to 5 pixels. Now the connector endpoints are spaced from the nodes. Next, I will show you how to bridge when two connectors cross. I import the connector bridging module from the Syncfusion EJ2 React Diagrams package. Then, using the inject tag, I inject the connector bridging module. I also add the constraints property and set the default and bridging enum values from the diagram constraints. In the diagram canvas, I changed the position of a node. Notice that when two connectors cross, bridging takes place, which makes the intersection smooth. By default, the bridging direction is top. The component also supports left, right, and bottom. In the diagram component, I add the bridge direction property and set it to right. Now, when changing the node's position, the bridge direction is right. That's how easy it is to customize the Syncfusion React Diagram component and its elements. I have shown you how to customize the diagram canvas, add multiple pages, and customize the appearance of nodes and connectors. You can download the example used in this video from the GitHub link in the description below. I've also included a link to check if you're eligible for our community license, which gives you a free license key for our entire React components. If you found this video useful, consider leaving a like and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.